How did you become an icon carver? How did that journey start, and what inspired you?
The idea that I'm an icon carver, I find it at this point it's become a little funny because I actually don't carve icons anymore. But in some ways, what it has to do is to understand that the things that I do have to be connected vertically. And so if I was going to make art, it had to be embedded into higher forms of meaning and higher forms of participation. So the great thing about making art for churches in a religious context is that you're making an object that is aimed towards the highest possible goal, and that is also given to participate within a community. And so it has a language that the community recognizes, and then that language is leading you up to a higher good. And so that's how I see the world. And I want that to not just be something that I think about, but something that I actually do. And so the icon carving is part of it. But I would say pretty much all the things that I do, hopefully, are manifesting that vision of reality, at the different level. So it's different from, the idea that artists express themselves and that artists make art for art's sake. Like, to me, that's a form of modern breakdown, you could say, right? It seems to participate in a kind of fragmentation, whereas traditional arts, all the traditional arts, they were rather seen as, so the word art means well fitted together, right? The Latin word for art. And what it means is that you take a bunch of multiplicity, right? So I take stones, and I take my skill, and I take tools, and I take a thing, and I join them together towards a purpose. And that's what art is. And that's why art and techne are actually, technology are actually, in the ancient world, they were the same thing, because it's like I'm gathering things together towards a purpose. And in my case, it's towards worship of God, which I think is the highest possible goal, or the highest possible good.
And people, I think, in this increasing polarization in our society, can probably benefit from understanding this sort of symbolism and archetypes. Do you think that an understanding and an appreciation of symbolism and archetypes can help us bridge ideological divides?
Definitely. Diversity is our strength. And then you have someone who says, America first, right? And so it's like, or Canada first, right? So it's like, you can see that one is saying identity, one, we need something to bind us together. And the other is saying, well, watch out, that binding might be too severe. So we also need to express variability. And so what symbolism, an aspect of symbolism, is always the capacity to play or to see between those two aspects of a being, how there is the pattern, and then there's also the variation on the pattern. And without that, then we're stuck in a war between the two sides. It's like breathing in and breathing out, right? You can't just breathe in.
So
you
what?
can't just breathe out.
So what?
You have to move. So there's a beautiful poem by Rumi. He says, if you keep the hand always open, if you keep the hand always closed, you're paralyzed. But he said, life is the gentle opening and closing of the hands, like the wings of a butterfly.
Wow.
That is the movement between unity and multiplicity. It's a kind of dance where you are careful not to go too far into one to the other.